Well, Backrooms is finally here, and it's a weird one. For context, my knowledge of the Backrooms lore pretty much begins and ends with the original viral YouTube video that most people have seen. If the concept of the Backrooms already makes you feel uneasy, you're probably going to feel that during the movie because they absolutely nailed the atmosphere here. When the characters are in the Backrooms, it's eerie, unnerving, anxiety-filled, stress-inducing, claustrophobic, whatever you want to call it. If you don't already have a primal fear of getting lost, you very well might after this one. The sound design is one of the film's strongest aspects. At times, it almost feels like another character in the movie and elevates every scene. The performances are solid across the board, and the cinematography does a fantastic job at helping induce stress, as well as making you question whether the characters are truly alone inside the Backrooms or if something else is in there with them. I believe it's set in the early 90s too, and that whole analog era just worked perfectly for the movie. Honestly, the first half of this movie really delivered for me. It felt much closer to the Backrooms experience a lot of us are familiar with, and I loved how they seamlessly blended between live action and found footage. I wish they had leaned into that a bit more because the found footage sections were easily the best parts of the movie in my opinion. That's where most of the tension lives and where the film feels most effective. That all said, I think this movie is going to leave a lot of people with the feeling of, what the hell did I just watch? There are entire sections of dialogue that could have been cut down significantly, and while I appreciate some of the character depth they were trying to build, the movie once again leans heavily into personal trauma, which slowed the pacing significantly, and I found myself wishing they had focused that energy somewhere else. There's also something lurking within the Backrooms that I think audiences are either going to find genuinely terrifying or completely hilarious. I don't see there being much middle ground. The last 30 to 40% of the movie felt like the writers weren't entirely sure how to stretch the concept of the Backrooms into a feature-length film, so they started filling screen time with whatever bizarre elements they could think of or pulled from other Backrooms YouTube videos. And to that point, I've seen people saying if you know all the lore to the Backrooms, it's not confusing. Yeah, no shit. The problem with that is not everyone knows the lore. I'd argue most people have seen the main YouTube video and likely only a few others. If the movie only makes sense to those who have watched every YouTube video, you're alienating a large portion of people. I'd rather they explain a bit of it in the actual movie and then expand on it in another. My biggest issue though is that it felt like the movie was constantly trying to fill its runtime with things it simply didn't need. And I say that because whenever it focuses on blending the live action story with the found footage elements and taps into that version of the Backrooms most of us know from online, that's when it succeeded the most. Overall, Backrooms delivers when it comes to the visuals, atmosphere, and sound design. It's not particularly scary, but it absolutely has moments that will make you feel suffocated and uneasy. I just left the theater wishing they had leaned harder into the found footage vibes and the experience of being lost in the Backrooms as opposed to the super bizarre stuff they had in it. Because when this movie embraced what made the Backrooms so effective in the first place, it's great. I just don't think it did that nearly enough.